for people who don't know anything about it, what can they expect?
What can they expect? Like a lot of truth, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of humor, a lot of catharsis. It made me cry, and I was in it. So, yeah.
And obviously, it's not your first time working with the director. What's so special about her, and what do you think is different when you return to a collaboration? Perhaps you have more of a shorthand, and you can kind of go deeper with the story.
Yeah, I think you can do better work when there's more of a comfortability and more of an ability to feel vulnerable. If you really trust your director and they create a space that feels comfortable for you to be whoever and whatever you need to be for that character. She's very good at that. And I trust her, and I trust her vision, and she knows a lot about camera, and she knows a lot about what she wants. She's decisive, she's confident. She knows when to tell me to shut up. I think that's why I love working with her so much.
And, of course, for Vicky, it's such an incredibly personal story. I know in the previous film, Dirty God, obviously the scars she has were referenced, but this was kind of going more into her own backstory. What was it like for you, perhaps, coming on board with that? And, must have felt very special, but also quite difficult in some ways.
I think at first it was, fuck, how am I going to be supportive to this person who's having to do this terribly vulnerable and relive all this trauma? And then it was realizing that I was learning actually a lot more from Vicky about her strength, resilience, ability to be vulnerable and kind in doing so, and patient, things which I definitely struggle with. And so it was wonderful to be there and watch her so gracefully and kindly and with such skill and talent deal with what she's been through in life and learn from her. Yeah.
And there's such an intensity to your performances, the interaction of your characters, lots of intimate moments. How did you find the experience of being on set, and perhaps where were some of the most challenging moments and some of the highlights?
Challenging moments was, a lot of it was improvised, and Vicky would tell me things that had been said to her, and then I would bring that into an argument. And I felt awful doing it. I couldn't believe I was saying these horrible things to Vicky. There was a scene where I say, get in it, go over it. You've been in a fire, so what? Like, who would want to fuck you? And da da da. I'm being horrible to her. I love Vicky, absolutely love her, and so being horrible to her in those moments, because those scenes were so real, and they were improvised, and there were real emotions. It was really hard to do that. But again, she's like, don't worry about it. We're telling some truth here, and she was strong and graceful through that, and very kind to me actually. And actually, she had to help me be horrible to her. So that was hard. And then beyond that, just a lot of laughs, a lot of very real moments of laughter and joy and connection between us.
One of the things that Sacha was talking about was, even though it does depict and reference kind of poverty and very much part of British society, and we have to kind of face up to the reality of that. But there's so much warmth and love that sort of counteracts that. So it's a very nuanced depiction of a certain type of life.
Yeah, it is nuanced and it is original. I'm not the biggest fan of a kitchen sink drama. I'm not a fan of poverty porn. I'm not a fan of film students who are privileged going into working class communities and being like, wow, look how aesthetic all of this, this council estate is. Let's, shoot this council estate. And then they go off and win lots of awards and have their careers bolstered by exploiting the lives and stories of poor people. I see it a lot in America. I see it a lot in, I've seen it with films that were very successful recently in the US. And I'm just like, well, that's not your world. Fuck off. And I think I have, when I was concerned going into this that it could feel like that. But the thing is it isn't. And it's amazing that Sacha has been able to create a film about that world without it feeling like poverty porn. And I think that's because they have such an eye for camera, her and Tibor, the DP, and they were able to sort of bring something filmic and beautiful to it, as opposed to shooting this like a documentary. And it's not really about poverty either. It's about love and friendship and family. This doesn't really even come into it. And it also, because it was Vicky was sort of the one behind that, it was her vehicle to tell her story. So I think it's a rare example of someone from that world being like, this is the reality of it, as opposed to some rich NYU student going, let's make a film about poor people.
And just finally, what do you think people can take away from watching the film? And do you think we've turned a bit of a corner in terms of being able to tell these quite like unflinching female-led stories that perhaps we didn't have enough of in the past?
I don't know how much that's changing, to be honest. I mean, yeah, it's a bit like, female directors, this and that. I mean, still pretty hard for women to get their films made. It's still pretty hard for women to be taken seriously on set. I know I experience it sometimes. I know my shit, and I'll say something, and people are like, "Yeah, right, 23, you're a woman, fuck off." But yeah, I mean, I think that Sacha, but it doesn't even Sacha's. It's not even about being a woman. It's like we're filmmakers, we're actors. Sort of almost want to stop talking about the fact that we're women and doing that. It's like, can we just do it and stop talking about the fact that we're women doing it, please?
100%. Well, thanks so much for sharing all
Thank
that. Can't
you.
wait for everyone else to see the
Thank you
film.
so
Thanks
much.
a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers.